Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the WCAI research opportunity entitled Customer and Employee Satisfaction and Repeat Retail Transactions. I am Ben Adams, the Research Director of the WCAI, and this research opportunity is sponsored by the Hertz Corporation. And on the call with me today, I have a number of people from Hertz, including, the names are listed there, but we'll have people introduce themselves. Karl Heinz is on the line, but unfortunately is not available to speak. He's feeling a little under the weather. Sorry about that, Karl. But Jatinder, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jatinder Kapoor, and I'm Senior Vice President and Corporate Controller for the Hertz Corporation globally.
Thank you. Adi?
Hi, I'm Adi Wabasano. I'm the Senior Director and Finance Business Partner supporting Hertz's global corporate functions, and I report into Jatinder.
Great. Thank you. Lance?
Hi, I'm Lance Casey, and I'm a Business Reporting Analyst in the Customer Care Programs who handles the administration of the survey program.
Great. And Tom?
Hi, Tom Pagano, Director of Marketing Planning Information. I oversee the data warehouse and Salesforce automation technology for the Hertz Corporation.
Great. Thank you for joining me. Before we go further, I just have a quick note on the content of today's presentation. This webinar is intended for researchers and scholars. If you have any questions on the program or WCAI in general, we recommend you reach out to the email address listed, wcairesearch@wharton.upenn.edu. If there are any members of the press or public who have additional questions or follow-on, please feel free to reach out to Nicole Berlucci, our Director of Communications. As we go through the slides today, you will have the opportunity to ask questions via text at the bottom of your screen. We encourage you to do so. We will not have the opportunity during the call to answer all of your questions, but we will answer as many as we can. And after the call, we will follow up via email to answer all of the questions that were posted. The schedule we're going to follow today, we have a little bit of background on Hertz. Then we're going to give an overview of the data set that we're offering researchers to work on. We'll talk a little bit in detail about the three areas, the customer satisfaction, the employee engagement, and the transaction data. Then we'll give you a little glimpse, a few ideas of opportunities for research, and then we'll go over the details of submitting a proposal. So to start, we're going to do a little background on Hertz, and for that, I'm going to ask Jatinder if you could speak a little bit about Hertz and who you are.
Sure, thank you. Hertz is a premier global brand, and we just wanted to give you a little background on Hertz itself. We are primarily known as a car rental company, but we do have a pretty decent-sized equipment rental business too. And our revenues for our car rental business are about $7.4 billion, and our equipment rental business is about $1.3 billion. Even though our discussion today is all going to be around our car rental business, where globally we're present in about 150 countries, either through a franchise network or corporately owned stores. We have about 8,800 locations, which include all our franchisees and so on. And we offer a number of products, including hourly, weekly, monthly, and even a leasing business. We have a company called Donlan that does leasing, and we cater to a wide spectrum of customers. And if you turn to the next slide, we picked one strategic initiative that we have going on right now. About 10 or 12 days ago, we purchased the Dollar Thrifty company, and we are looking at overall a global leisure brand initiative where we will be trying to get into different segments of the whole car rental business and see how we structure Hertz as a premium brand, and then look at a number of our Dollar and Thrifty companies to be in the mid-tier and some value brand, and then look at other alternatives. But just to give you a feel for, what we're looking at from a business perspective, and then how we are working at being at every type of customer across the world. So this sort of gives you a little background on one of the initiatives that we have going on at Hertz and the size of Hertz and where we are globally.
Great. Thank you very much. So now that we've had a little bit of background, the data set that we're presenting today is what we like to think about is simple in concept, but provides lots and lots of opportunities. It's really about surveys, both customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction surveys. To give you a sense of kind of where it fits in, let's give you an example of how the experience might be. So if you think about a kind of a timeline of activity, here we have an example of Jane in Atlanta. She might fly to the Philadelphia airport, rent a car from Hertz, and as a result of that rental, she fills out a survey. Then sometime later, she flies to Los Angeles, and this time, even though she's still renting with Hertz, she doesn't supply a survey response. But then sometime later, somewhere in Atlanta in an off-airport location, she might rent again for her own personal reasons, and maybe that time she completes a survey. So she's rented a car 3 times, but has only completed 2 surveys. At this same time, this same span of time, all the employees at the Philadelphia airport complete an engagement survey for Hertz, as do the employees at the Los Angeles airport. And all the off-airport locations in Atlanta also fill out. Because of the number of employees that are located at each Hertz office, the airports tend to be identified uniquely for the set of employees, but all the off-airport locations tend to be very small, so they're grouped. Their responses are grouped together by geographic area. So you'll see all of the Atlanta off-airport locations and all of the Los Angeles off-airport locations. So again, it is these simple in concept. We've got a number of customer satisfaction surveys as a result of rental transactions. Those rental transactions happen at a location, and those locations have employees who completed satisfaction surveys. Really, this data is driven by the survey. So if you think of the big blue box presented here as all Hertz transactions in 2 years, there's 2 groups or 2 subsets. People who are members of the Hertz #1 club, that is people who rent frequently and participate in essentially a loyalty program. And there are people who complete a post-rental survey, whether or not they're a member of the club. In our data set that we're presenting today, we have 900,000, more than 900,000 transactions with surveys. We have the individual survey and the transaction detail for each one. Also, approximately 27% of the surveys completed were completed by #1 club members. And for those #1 club members, we have an additional 9.8 million transactions. These are transactions that didn't trigger a survey, that instead they were just activity that happened. If you think back to the slide with Jane, Jane might be a #1 club member, and while she rents, she doesn't complete a survey every time. So, simple survey, simple data, big opportunities. Let's zero in a little bit more, talk a little bit more about the customer satisfaction survey. So again, this is people who rent a car. When they're finished renting the car, they have on their receipt, they get a website and a code to go complete a satisfaction survey. And many of those customers are also actively solicited after the rental with an email. So you can see that the number of surveys responses vary by month. These are all the surveys in our time window, which is from August 2010 through September of 2012. It is at locations all across U.S. and Canada. And with this variation that we have, we still end up with 939,000 completed surveys. Here's an example of what the instrument might look like. This is the middle of the survey. For those research teams that are awarded the data, they'll be able to see the full text of the entire survey. In addition to those questions that we just saw, there are fields like what was your overall experience, how likely are you to recommend a friend or a colleague, how likely are you to rent in the future. There's also a staff shout-out field. It's free text comments from the responder who wants to single out staff members who were particularly helpful. About 8% of the responses have text in this free text field. The question, how likely is it you will recommend Hertz to a friend or colleague, is used to compute a Net Promoter Score, or NPS. This NPS is used commonly in the survey industry to help Hertz identify the overall reaction or quality of the survey. The data that we have is stored in our data set as 100, 0, and -100 for each response on each question. So respondents who clicked an 8 or a 9 are recorded as 100. Those who clicked 6 or 7 are recorded as a 0. And those who clicked below a 5 or below are recorded as -100. This facilitates it helps in calculating this Net Promoter Score. And you can see that not only is there variation in the number of responses in each month, there's also monthly variation in the Net Promoter Score. So you'll see in this particular graph, the height is the number of responses, and the intensity of green is the average Net Promoter Score. The stronger the green, the higher the score. NPS also varies by location. Here you can see the average NPS bucketed together and a count of the locations. And so, for example, approximately 600 locations have an average NPS score between 20 and 40. You should watch out, though, for the extreme ends. While there are approximately 400 locations that have a Net Promoter Score of 100, that means really that those locations had very few surveys completed. All right, so that's the customer satisfaction survey data. Again, it's very rich and very possible to have lots of interesting questions there. But tied with the customer satisfaction survey, we have the employee engagement survey. So the employee engagement are repeated cross-sections of all employees at Hertz 5 times in the 2-year window. There were approximately an 80% response rate, although you can see that the number of responses varied at each cross-section. There were 68,000 responses. I should point out at this moment that these are individual responses by individual employees. They are not individually identified, however, so you can't use this data for panel information. But we do have individual individual employee responses to this survey. The data, again, is from United States and Canada, including the corporate headquarters in New Jersey and the administrative center in Oklahoma City. Here's an example of the instrument. Again, it's kind of in the middle, and you can see the sorts of questions that are asked. Again, the teams that are awarded the data will be able to see the complete text and the full instrument as it's presented to the employee. The data, there's very rich variation and information that we have about the employees. For example, employees are grouped into 109 different job titles or job categories with specific detail about those job titles. They do break out into management and non-management, as well as those who have direct customer contact and those who do not. This graph shows you for management and non-management, the difference between customer and no customer contact. And these actual pie charts are proportional to the number of responses that are in the data. In addition, we have 8 different types of locations, including several types of field offices, regional admin, the customer support center, and corporate offices. We've grouped them together here. I should point out, if your research will connect employee and customer satisfaction, you'll be focused on those who are at the rent-a-car field locations. There are no customer surveys tied to corporate headquarters or administrative offices. We have a quick question about the customer satisfaction survey. So Lance, I'd like to ask you from the audience, does the customer satisfaction survey data contain information about customer complaints?
As far as the data, they're able to leave comments, but as far as if we received, I mean, it's basically up to the customer what they put in. If it's somebody that contacted our customer service group, no, we wouldn't have any kind of correlation between the two.
Okay. We have another question, and the question from the audience is it possible to get data on incentive plans and compensation for employees? The awarded teams will have access to general descriptions of compensation plans and incentive plans, but we do not have individual job titles and their individual incentive plans available. However, if that is part of your research, please include that requirement in your research proposal, and we will investigate with Hertz if that specific information is available. Moving on, the employee engagement also has self-reported tenure with Hertz, and you can see the variation of people who are very recent with Hertz, and fully a third are with Hertz for more than 10 years. I should remind again that this is not panel data. This is repeated cross-sections, and panel data is just simply not available for this research project. So now we talked about...
Sorry, this is Ellie. We had a question come in about how you match the customer surveys to the employee surveys. Can you talk a little bit more about how those can be linked?
Yes. So again, the customers rent a car at a specific location. That location is uniquely identified by a name and a code number. Then employees fill out the survey, and they are tied to a location. Again, as we mentioned at the beginning, or towards the beginning, employees at very small locations do not get individually tied to a location. And those are the off-airport locations in metropolitan areas. So, for example, the Hertz rental office at the Marriott Times Square in New York City would be considered an off-airport rental location, and that specific location is not available. However, each of the major airports in major metropolitan areas are identified, and so we can see all of the people who rented at Los Angeles Airport and all of the employee engagement surveys at the Los Angeles Airport. We have, at this point, the 75 or 80 most frequently used airports have been linked directly, and we will continue to do that for all of the airports in the North America. So we have the customer satisfaction survey data, the employee engagement data. So now let's talk about that specific transaction data that I was just speaking about. For the 939,000 surveys, again, because they're triggered by a rental transaction, we have detailed information about that specific transaction that created the survey. Of that, approximately 27% of the surveys were completed by members of Hertz Number 1 Club. Those responses can be used to track repeat transactions with surveys for each transaction. There are roughly 2.6 surveys per Number 1 Club member. And then in addition to the Number 1 Club members, in addition to the survey transactions, we have all the transactions for those Number 1 Club members in the observation window, independent of whether they filled out a survey. That ends up to be 9.8 million additional rentals, roughly 25 transactions per renter in the window. We expect an additional 100,000 randomly selected Number 1 Club members and their transactions, those who never completed a survey. If your research needs that for what you're trying to study, we encourage you to include it in your proposal. All of these surveys, all of these transactions took place in the United States and Canada, and again, it includes both airport and off-airport locations. In this transaction data, we have, for example, the reason for rental, either business or leisure or insurance replacement. We have the booking channels by reason. So here is the different booking channels that a customer can access. And we have car class, all the very specific car class that they got. The research teams that are going to be awarded the data will provide complete descriptions of all channels and classes. They are available. In addition, we have pickup and return details of the rental. We have the home country and state or province of the renter. There are 178 unique countries in the data set. Of course, since all of the rentals took place in the United States and Canada, the vast majority of the responses are people who live in the United States and Canada. However, if you're interested in studying the differences of people from other countries, there are 10 countries with 400 responses in the survey data. It is all of the United States and Canada, all 50 states, plus the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and all 13 Canadian provinces. In addition, there's a customer tier based on prior spending. There are 8 different customer tiers, although, again, the vast majority of these people are either tier 0, they have no history at all, or they are considered a basic tier, a basic person. And we have accurate, not appended, but accurate age or birthday of the customer. The individual, since they present a valid driver's license when they rent their car, that we have the exact birth date of customers. In addition to this base data for customers, we also have upsell data, where the customer has the opportunity to purchase something more than their basic transaction. One type of upsell is that a customer gets a different car class than was reserved. For example, I reserve a mid-size car, and when I walk up to the counter, I decide I will do an intermediate car instead, and that would be considered an upsell. Hertz tracks specific changes. One of the car classes available is a upsell intermediate, indicating that the person was convinced into an upsell. We also have the data about whether the car class that they paid for is different than the car class they reserved. And if it is what they paid for was greater than what they reserved, this is also likely an upsell. Another kind of upsell is when a customer gets a device that they might add on, such as a GPS or a satellite radio. Here is the information about a GPS device. So they can be reserved ahead of time, they could be included in the price, or they could be purchased at the time of rental. When purchased, they are sold either by a travel agent or the rental counter. We did have a question, and Tom, I'd like to direct this question to you from the from the audience. Tom, the question says, I assume that we can match the specific customer transaction with a specific customer satisfaction survey. Is that the case?
I think, Ben, I'm going to have to throw that one back to Lance, because as far as on the transaction data, there's a identifier of a customer and a rental agreement. So I would confirm with Lance, but I believe we can match it back to the RA, which would tie it back to each other. So we could do that, but I'd want to confirm that with Lance.
Lance? Go ahead.
That's absolutely correct. I would point out that there could be some that we don't have the rental data for, just for miskeys by the customer when they enter in the rental agreement number, but that should be a low number. But yes, we should be able to tie that back by rental agreement number.
So just to clarify, we can tie the exact customer survey to the exact transaction, so we can see if they were happy with they were satisfied with their car. We can see exactly what car class that they got.
Yes.
Great. In addition, the upsell, and actually before we move on to other upsell data, we have a follow-on question to that. And again, this is transaction data. So Tom, I'm going to ask you, do we know if the customer added on an additional driver? Do we have data for the age of an additional driver?
We do have the additional driver charge, so there is an indication of that there is an additional driver. I'd have to find out and get back to somebody. I don't know if the additional driver age is on there, but we do have the age of the primary driver.
Okay. So if that is something that you need in part of your research, we encourage you to include that as part of your proposal. And we have one more transaction-related question. So it's, again, because it's transaction, Tom, I'm going to ask you, but I'm not sure, so we'll figure out. Someone asked, any observations about upsell which is not intended by customers? For example, the vehicle they reserved is not available.
Typically, in that case, if it's not by the customer, there will be no amount charged for the customer. You will see that on the transaction record. So more than likely what they've been, when you see an upsell, you can see a difference, let's say in the examples you gave before, Ben, of the car classes that they reserved is different than the charged. That would be a good indicator of that somebody was upsold into a car because there was no availability of that particular car class that they reserved originally.
But correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking prior, we had understood that Hertz uses the term upgrade when it's a change to the car class or some other piece that Hertz pays for, and an upsell when the customer pays for it.
True.
Okay. And yes, there is some data related to upgrades, but we're also interested in understanding the upsell behavior. And another kind of upsell is prepaid fuel. You can see from this chart that there are a number of different amounts that people can charge, and so you'll see that it goes from $10 or less all the way up to more than $100. So that's the data. That gives you the sense of the data. There was another question from the audience, okay, there's several more questions, but we had one question. Lance, I will ask you, how frequently does an employee fill out the employee satisfaction survey?
Each employee should fill out one survey whenever we run during the pulse survey time frame, and we normally run that twice a year, normally second quarter and fourth quarter of each year.
And I believe in our observation window we have 5 of those, correct?
Yes. Yes. So
we have 5 separate collections of data and most employees fill them out each time. But each employee only fills out one.
Yes.
Great. I'm not sure who the best person to ask this to. Let's ask Jatinder. Jatinder, if you could answer this question from the audience. Are employee survey results fed back to individual locations after the survey has been collected?
Yes, they are. They are fed back to the locations, but in aggregate, not so people don't see individuals, but in total, yes.
Great. Thank you. Now we have Lance, I guess we have another question for you. The data, it says, does the employee engagement data include personal demographics like gender, age, education level beyond the tenure with Hertz?
No, we don't include, or we don't ask those questions.
Okay. Great. All right, so we've talked again about the customer satisfaction survey, the employee engagement survey, and the transactions that link them. Now we're going to talk, just give you a hint of some examples, opportunities for research. So, for example, there is regional variation in customer satisfaction. On all of the questions, we don't have to just do a Net Promoter Score. We can look at, for example, the average of staff courtesy, and you can see that there is variation for some reason. The upper Midwest of the United States and the far northeast of the United States are considered much more staff courtesy than, say, some other areas of the country. We're not suggesting why. We're looking for research to indicate why. Another is that employee satisfaction varies by region. And so if we take, for example, I would recommend Hertz as an employer, you can see that that varies by, for example, the Northeast, the Southwest, and so on, these various regional areas. I've split this data here to show you by the heavy equipment rental and the rental car field offices. Again, you can see that there is variation, and if you would like to focus exclusively on the employee survey, you can include these other kinds of locations. There's also correlation information or potential correlation information. Is there some sort of correlation between Net Promoter Score and the employee recommending Hertz? Are there other survey questions on either instrument that might be impactful? It looks like there might be some sort of correlation, but it's hard to tell. There's also could be correlation, most importantly, between customer upsell and an employee recommending Hertz. There might be other measures of employee satisfaction that could drive upsell. And again, we want to distinguish the word upsell from the word upgrade. Upsell in this context means something that is where the customer bought anything not included in the base price, whether that's fuel, insurance, equipment, or car class. And discussing this research opportunity, Hertz has expressed particular interest in trying to understand the relationship between employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and customers' purchase behavior. For example, if a customer receives service at a location with high or perhaps low employee satisfaction, does the impact of that event impact the customer's future behavior? Are there specific types of rental experience that precede a drop or an increase in customer satisfaction? What's the value of each distribution partner? Is there a way to monitor the value of a channel partner over time? And do any of the answers of the above questions vary across different types of customers, the business versus the leisure traveler, or these locations, these on-airport versus off-airport locations, a key distinction? Circling back again, we have lots and lots of data. It's simple in concept, but there's big opportunities. While Hertz has asked some questions, we ask, what is your question, and how will you answer? It looks like we have a lot of questions that you're already asking, which is great. So let's look at some of the questions from the audience. Tom, I'd like to take this question to you. Just to clarify, we have the data on the price of the rental. Also, would the price of the car always be cheaper if booked online, or would that depend on the demand at that location? That was the question that was asked. As I understand it, well, let's break it up. First, do we have data on the price of the rental? Is that included in our data set? And I don't believe that it is, but could you elaborate further?
Well, the price of the rental itself, as far as what was charged, the total amount is on the rental. And as far as just the rate that was charged, there is some data that ties back to that, but maybe directing it to Adi, who's he used to be in the pricing area, may be able to answer that a little bit further about how that kind of can get identified as far as how the individual rate is off of our rate engine.
That's correct, Tom. So in terms of is the price always cheaper if booked online, I think that's the main question here. It is not always cheaper if booked online. Sometimes prices could be cheaper if booked via a certain travel agency, and it also depends on the contractual terms related to that customer. But additional fields are available in the data set to be able to identify that. We can look at the specific affiliation that customer booked on for that rental, as well as when you see the granular booking channel data, you'll be able to delineate the occurrences where that occurs. And back to you, Ben, unless I did not address the question.
No, that's great. And again, if that pricing information is required for your research, please include it in your proposal. Another question, and actually, I think, Adi, I'm going to ask this one of you again. Is there a reward program for the customers, either a frequent flyer or loyalty reward program?
Yes, there is. We call it it used to be called the Hertz #1 Club Gold. Now it's the Hertz Loyalty Rewards Program.
And is that reflected in the customer tier that we talked about before?
The customer tier, I will have to pass that on to Tom Pagano. I think yes, but I'm not really sure as to what that field contains.
Yeah, thanks, Adi. But yes, it is. There is a reward based upon what tier they are. There is also another reward system that we do internally with the data that calculates based upon that tier, plus also to the revenue that was generated and also to their what's called their contribution to value of the rental. But there's basically to make it clear, there's two types of rewards or loyalty. There's a loyalty program that we do similar to like the airlines with points and such, but then there's also internally we do some value scoring against the customers also.
Great. So switching back to the customer satisfaction, it is the employee satisfaction. This is a question for Lance. Lance, are the raw score data available, or is it simply the 100, 0, and negative 100 coding?
We have the raw score data available.
Okay, great. So here's another question. Jatinder, this might be better for you. Jatinder, does Hertz also track employee turnover at the location?
Yes, we do track turnover by location. I'm not sure if it's in the data set or anything that we provided, but we can look at that.
Great. Yes, and as I've made sure, if that's something that is important to you and your research team, please make sure you include it in your proposal. And that is, we will go on to that leads to our good point of why should you submit a proposal. You will have access to this unique data set, very rich, very detailed. We have a simple, efficient process. Proposals are due only a few weeks from now, and the data is available just a few weeks after that. WCII provides assistance with cleaning and preparation of the data, and you'll have the opportunity to have a teleconference with members of the Hertz team to answer any questions your research team might have. You'll have an invitation to a private symposium to share your research findings with a corporate partner. That will be at the end of 2013. And we will help you promote your research paper through the WCAI SSRN Research Paper Series. The format of the proposal that you should submit should be no more than 2,000 words and include the title, all of the authors, including a corresponding author, an abstract, an introduction, a project proposal, and biographies. We're also looking for a single PowerPoint slide that summarizes the team and the project, and we'd like you to combine those two portions into a single PDF. Think of this as a proposal to colleagues because it will be reviewed by academic teams. You can see more about the proposal format at the URL listed on the screen. We also require that you submit it online. They are due Thursday, December 20th, before 12 noon Eastern. We will only accept those who are submitted online. And again, we'd like a single PDF combining the written portion and the single PowerPoint slide. Proposals will be evaluated both on academic contribution and potential to significantly improve the research sponsor's marketing practice. You can see the names of the reviewing team, including Gene Anderson from University of Miami, Adam Grant, Eric Bradlow, Pete Fader, and Ellie Feit, all from Wharton. We'll also include representatives from Hertz. Please contact us if you have any specific questions. We're happy to answer any of your questions about the data or about the process to make sure that you have the best opportunity to submit for this research proposal. However, if you choose not to submit or if your team is not submitted for this, there are other opportunities for you to work with us. You will receive regular announcements about our upcoming research opportunities, including some people asked about a loyalty program. We have a very exciting multi-channel, multi-brand loyalty program data coming in February. We have an online ratings across multiple channels and brands in March, and we have a group that is trying to connect survey research data to online behavior coming in April. In addition, we have grant and funding opportunities, and we're having a conference in May on measuring advertising effectiveness. All of these things you'll find out about our regular announcements by registering for this webinar. You can also find us on the SSRN Research Paper Series, and you can sign up for any announcements on our website. In the time that we have remaining, we have a few more questions. However, we don't have time to answer all of the questions you've submitted, so we will make sure to answer all questions before the deadline of proposals. So, Jatinder, I will ask this question of you. Were there any broad HR initiatives, such as an employee involvement program, in place during this observation period from the middle of 2010 to this fall of 2012?
Yes, there were. There were a number of initiatives working on our entire employee base, getting them more engaged, getting more training initiatives, et cetera. And I don't know if you want to elaborate. I know, Karl-Heinz, your voice is not working well today, but do you want to comment on that, or we can get back to people with, detailed initiatives if they want?
I just can't speak. We get back to people.
Okay, that's fine.
So yes, again, if that's important to your research, some information is available and can be made available to the teams who are rewarded the data. This is a related question, perhaps, to employee involvement programs. So, Jatinder, again, this question is for you. Do employees get commission or otherwise reward for upselling behavior?
Yes, they do. It varies somewhat across some parts of the organization, but they are commissions for upsells in the company.
And I believe that we mentioned before that we have the broad outlines of the compensation strategies that include upsell targets and upsell commissions that will be made available to the teams who are awarded the data. Lance, this question is for you. We said previously that raw scores are available for employee satisfaction. Are the raw scores also available for customer satisfaction?
Yes, we have the raw scores for both the different surveys, so for the employee engagement and for the customer service survey.
Great. Another question for Jatinder. Did any mergers happen among key competitors of Hertz during this same 2-year period? So not Hertz mergers, but key competitors.
Yeah, no, I don't think any happened in that 2-year period. We had some earlier when some of our competitors merged, but that was before this time frame.
Okay. And we had a question that is about data that I know is not included in the data set, but Adi, I'll ask this question of you. For the individual locations, is there data available about the number or companies of the nearby rental car competitors?
For airport locations, yes, we have market share data that specifies the number and what brands or companies comprise those competitors. For off-airport, unfortunately, we do not.
Okay, great. Well, we thank you very much for attending this webinar. If you have questions, issues, or concerns, please submit them to WCAI Research at wharton.upenn.edu. And we are happy to entertain proposals, and we hope to see yours. Thank you very much.